Thank you for joining us again and welcome back to EDUSPLORER. It is clear that the foreign minister, or the Secretary of State as you will call him, Mr. Marco Rubio, failed to understand the fundamentals regards to the foreign policy of the United States of America when trying to address the immigration issue, talking about the Afrikaner problem in particular that the administration has pushed forward regards to other accusations to the country of South Africa. In a recent Senate conversation, how foreign affairs, or you will say Secretary of State, go back to the Congress or Senate to answer questions. Basic question, very basic.
Do you think Afrikaner farmers are the most persecuted group in the world?
I think those 49 people that came certainly felt they were persecuted, and they've passed every sort of check mark that had to be checked off in terms of meeting the requirements for that. They live in a country where farms are taken and land is taken on a racial basis.
Okay. Do you think they're more persecuted than Uyghurs or Rohingyas, or more persecuted than political dissidents in Cuba or Venezuela or Nicaragua, or more persecuted than those who would be threatened should they be returned to Afghanistan by violence by the Taliban?
Well, the problem we face there is the volume problem, okay? If you look at all the persecuted people of the world, it's millions of people. They can't all come here. And we had refugee programs.
So why prioritize Afrikaner farmers?
Well, because it's a small subset, it's a new issue, and the president identified it as a problem and wanted to use it as an example. But that's different from having these refugee programs that were basically spending money to put people up in communities and accommodate them, and it was acting as a magnet. Millions of people in this country illegally, and today the border is sealed.
Let me challenge you, and I'm just going to say for the public, if you want to understand about the, quote, persecution of Afrikaner farmers, go look at the composition of the South African government. Since July of 2024, there's a government of national unity, and the opposition party to the ANC, the Afrikaner Party, the Democracy Alliance, is part of the governing coalition. They joined the governing coalition a year ago, and the leader of that party was given the remit of Agriculture Minister, John Steenhuisen. He is the leader of the former Afrikaner Party, still widely representing Afrikaners. He is the Minister of Agriculture in South Africa right now.
And Mr. Tim Keine, you all know him. He was a former vice presidential candidate, I think under Hillary Clinton, something like that. He made no mistake. After having spoken about other issues, talk about the global affairs and some other concern, Russia-Ukrainian war, a number of things, Mr. Keine basically put Mr. Rubio on the spot. And Mr. Rubio was struggling to answer basic questions. And in that conversation, Mr. Keine lectured Marco Rubio about the apartheid situation in South Africa. He asked him the question, where was the United States of America, or did the United States of America have any particular black policy that when the apartheid regime, government or the policy in South Africa was ranging at the time?
Mr. Secretary, I want to ask you about the program. It's the United States Refugee Assistance Program, and this is a program that state is the manager of, but together with other cabinet secretariats, DHS and HHS, state plays the lead management role, and it is how to manage the U.S. refugee assistance programs in tandem with contractors who help the United States on that. By an executive order on the first day of his presidency, President Trump paused all refugee programs and has canceled contracts to the agencies like the U.S. Catholic Church or Lutheran Refugee Services or HIAS or Church World Services who've been resettling refugees. Those programs are paused. There's litigation about it, but as far as I know, the United States is not, or the administration has not withdrawn the executive order. So there's essentially from this administration no refugee programs for anyone except. In early February, the president announced a special refugee program for Afrikaner farmers, justified A, by some concerns about South African foreign policy, but B, a claim that these were persecuted individuals. So right now, the U.S. refugee program allows a special program for Afrikaner farmers, the first group of whom arrived at Dulles Airport in Virginia not long ago, while shutting off the refugee program for everyone else. Do you think Afrikaner farmers are the most persecuted group in the world?
I think those 49 people that came certainly felt they were persecuted, and they passed every sort of check mark that had to be checked off in terms of meeting the requirements for that. They live in a country where farms are taken and land is taken on a racial basis.
Okay. Do you think they're more persecuted than Uyghurs or Rohingyas, or more persecuted than political dissidents in Cuba or Venezuela or Nicaragua, or more persecuted than those who would be threatened should they be returned to Afghanistan by violence by the Taliban?
Well, the problem we face there is the volume problem, okay? If you look at all the persecuted people of the world, it's millions of people. They can't all come here. And we had refugee programs.
So why prioritize Afrikaner farmers?
Well, because it's a small subset, it's a new issue, and the president identified it as a problem and wanted to use it as an example. But that's different from having these refugee programs that were basically spending money to put people up in communities and accommodate them, and it was acting as a magnet.
Did the United States of America arrange any particular executive order, let's put it that way, that allow black South Africans to run to the United States of America? Mr. Rubio was saying that I was still young, I was still a baby, I was still very young. Okay, Mr. Kane said, let me teach you, let me lecture you. Because sometimes these politicians run around and say things that they don't have any understanding of. So the issue about the white farmers in South Africa, where South Africa has debunked the issue that it is a cross-the-board problem. It is a general problem. We saw the meeting at the White House, which South Africa won and came out with an outstanding victory from the geopolitical standpoint, because the South African people rejected that thing. They want to work together. They want to be one country. They want to solve their problems. They have issues of security internally. So Mr. Kane asked Mr. Rubio that question. Mr. Rubio struggled over and over, and he said, let me tell you that this was what it was then. So if you don't know what you are doing, hear it from me. So I was like, oh my God, this can be Marco Rubio being put at the spot. Let's play the clip first. We'll come back again. Roll the clip.
Millions of people in this country illegally, and today the border is sealed.
Let me challenge you, and I'm just going to say for the public, if you want to understand about the, quote, persecution of Afrikaner farmers, go look at the composition of the South African government. Since July of 2024, there's a government of national unity, and the opposition party to the ANC, the Afrikaner Party, the Democracy Alliance, is part of the governing coalition. They joined the governing coalition a year ago, and the leader of that party was given the remit of Agriculture Minister, John Steenhuisen. He is the leader of the former Afrikaner Party, still widely representing Afrikaners. He is the Minister of Agriculture in South Africa right now. I assert that this claim that there's persecution of Afrikaner farmers is completely specious. Are you aware ever during the apartheid era in South Africa, did the United States establish a special program to allow South African blacks who were treated as second-class citizens in the apartheid program, a special program so they could claim refugee status in the United States?
No, because I was probably in 9th grade or 8th grade at the time.
Yeah, well, then I don't expect you to know. I'll just tell you, never has there been a program, a special program for Africans to come in as refugees to the United States. We've allowed special programs for people being persecuted for their religion, Soviet-era Jews. We've allowed special programs for people fleeing from communism, Cuba, Vietnam, the Soviet Union. We've never allowed a special program to allow Africans into the United States in an expedited refugee status until now. Afrikaner farmers living in a nation governed by a government of national unity that includes the main Afrikaner Party. And actually, an even more right-wing Afrikaner Party is also included in the coalition government. Now,
so you can see that Mr. Marco Rubio, to an extent, got lectured. He's been talking about some bad things happening in South Africa. He refused to attend the G20 heads of foreign ministers meeting that took place in South Africa. As a result of this, we heard that the U.S. government pressured South Africa. South Africa has come under tremendous pressure, and a number of countries. We've seen how aid has been cut off in a number of African nations. The AGOA, African Growth and Opportunity Act, at the moment is on life support. No one is sure that it will be renewed. So Mr. Keine, I think, took Mr. Rubio to school to give him some lectures on foreign policy, on foreign challenges, and the issue about the Afrikaner refugees in the United States of America took center stage in this conversation. And Mr. Keine was just drilling, diving deeper, lecturing him, educating him, advising him, putting him into the spot, make Mr. Rubio to chew his own words. So there was a tough moment for Mr. Marco Rubio. I think he's going to be learning that geostrategic engagement globally comes with a price, comes with some hard work, So this particular back and forth was interesting, and it was a classic foreign policy discussion that Mr. Marco Rubio is learning the hard way from a senator to Secretary of State. It's two different dynamics, and the geopolitical environment that you see as a senator is different from what you see when you are out there. So let's play this clip.
Would you agree with me, Mr. Secretary, that if we're interpreting the statutory phrase, a well-justified fear of persecution, we should try to do that in an even-handed way?
I think we should try to do that in the interest of the national security of the United States.
So okay, I agree with you too. We should. Should we try to do it in an even-handed way? So, for example, should we say, if you're persecuted on the grounds of your religion, we'll let you in if you're a Christian, but not if you're a Muslim?
I think that the United States has a right to allow into this country and prioritize allowance of who they want to allow to come in.
But
I'm going to
ask you, what? Yeah. So a well-justified fear of persecution?
Yeah, they thought that their farms were being burned down and they would be killed. I think that's a pretty good justification for wanting to come. They're afraid for their lives.
And should it be applied in an even-handed way? That's an easy.
No, our foreign policy doesn't require even-handedness. It requires prioritizing the interests of the United States.
The statutory phrase says you are entitled to entrance as a refugee if you demonstrate a well-justified fear of persecution.
No, you're not entitled.
So can you have a different standard based upon the color of somebody's skin? Would that be acceptable?
Well, I'm not the one arguing that. Apparently you are, because you don't like the fact that they're white, and that's why they're coming.
I'm just asking you to say that that would be unacceptable.
Well, no, I would say that the United States,
a very easy thing to say.
The United States has a right to pick and choose who they allow into the United States.
Even based on the color of somebody's skin.
You're the one that's talking about the color of their skin, not me. These are people whose farms were being burned down and they were killed because of the color of their skin.
Well,
So this is the problem with global affairs analysts and also a foreign policy engagement, which to an extent Mr. Marco Rubio, when he took office or when he was about to take office, he was saying that the international United States of America's engagement will be from US's own interest. It's okay, but I wonder how that's going to play out in the countries across the Sahel region of the continent of Africa, when the United States of America was kicked out from the country of Niger based on the condescending approach, according to news media, that the United States of America wanted to inform Niger what they have to do, who they have to work with, how they have to behave, some kind of thing that it's like in neocolonialism, And for that reason, the country of Niger came out and said, no, we're not going to tolerate that, because we want to work with you, with the European Union, African countries, Russia, China. But for you to come in and start lecturing us on who we're going to be working with, that's unacceptable. So that particular aspect of the conversation saw the United States of America being kicked out, and more importantly, getting the drone base out from the country or the city of Agadez, so to point out, and that drone base, which was just over $100 million based on news information, was a devastating blow from this geostrategic point of view of the United States of America and the continent of Africa. So that was problematic, and that particular thing, I think Mr. Marco Rubio would have learned that engaging other countries should not only be from the United States of America's own interest, because sometimes the interest may not align with your geopolitical partner's own interest or the African country's own interest. So the problem and the issue about the Afrikaner challenges that we all are hearing in the global media, to an extent, left Marco Rubio speechless, and Mr. Keine keep coming back to that point and lecturing him. Let's play the clip one more time.
If you
Well, you've demonstrated enough because you think anyone should be allowed into this country for any reason because they met a certain criteria.
Who has said that?
We are going to prioritize people that come into our country on the basis of what's in the interest of this country. That's a small number of people that are coming.
But
in
you
that
said
particular case.
this weekend that
but
there
in
would
other
be more.
cases, it's harder to vet. In other cases, it's more difficult. And by the way, the United States admits people every year. 1 million people come to this country every year legally. 1 million
And
people
now
a year come to this
there
country
is one
legally.
group
No
of
other
people
country
that
in the
have
world
an
is nearly as
easy
generous.
pass into this country. For the first time, this administration has said Afrikaners get an easy pass and refugee programs for the remainder of the world are shut off. And you can't say to the American public that we should apply this statute in an even-handed way.
No, I think it should be applied in a way. No, well, you shouldn't be shocked. It should be applied in the national interest of the United States. Our immigration policy should be based on the national interest of the United States. Period. End of story. If there is a subset of people that are easier to vet, who we have a better understanding of who they are and what they're going to do when they come here, they're going to receive preference, no doubt about it. There are a lot of sad stories around the world. Millions and millions of people around the world. It's heartbreaking. We cannot assume millions and millions of people around the world. No country can. So you have to have a process of deciding who do you prioritize, who do you allow in. We do it all the time. We do it in our immigration system now under our current laws. Unfortunately, it's primarily based on family connection and not on what they're going to contribute to the society from a merit standpoint. That should be changed, but that'll require statutory changes. But the bottom line is, this notion that somehow we have to accept anyone who wants to come to the United States is absurd. No country in the world has an immigration policy like that.
And no one is arguing that we should. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
I want to thank you for watching. Let me know in the comment section if Mr. Marco Rubio came to the understanding that being a senator and Secretary of State are two different roles, that you see things from different perspectives, and more importantly, I understand that it needs to defend the administration's own position in a number of things. Mr. Keine came out and was lashing out, was pointing the points and making sure that he gave Mr. Marco Rubio some lesson about apartheid, about South Africa, about immigration, and educated him on that aspect. I want to thank you for watching. I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.